I'm here with Jamie Rose Brown, also known as the Happiness Ninja. Hi Jamie.
Hi Jo, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And today we're going to talk about alcohol and teenagers. Jamie, can you tell me a bit about yourself? You've been in a family where you've had a very strict parent around alcohol and then quite the opposite.
Yeah, when my mother was around, alcohol was a big no-no, to the point where I would go to great lengths to hide my alcohol consumption as a teenager to my mother. And then my parents split up when I was 16, and my father took a different view on it, a complete opposite view.
So you lived with your father then?
Yes. After my parents split, my brother and I lived with my father, and he took a very opposite view on alcohol than what my mother did, which is there was no alcohol allowed when it was both my parents. Mm-hmm. So I would hide it, and then when it was just my father, we had full range.
So how old were you at this point?
16.
Right.
Yeah. So I went from literally, I would lie and have, pretend to go to bed and then sneak out and have friends who had their license pick me up down the street, to having friends over and we would party and carry on. And it was more than just alcohol involved.
So what led you to want to have alcohol and want to be with the other kids who were doing this?
I was always outcasted in high school for various reasons. One of them was my mum was so strict and I didn't really get pocket money. I wasn't really allowed to do much of the other things that my friends were doing, so I was always outcasted. And then, so to fit in, I would just go behind her back to do what my friends were allowed to do. And then when my dad left, I thought it was great because suddenly I was cool kind of thing. Like my dad was cool and you could come party at my house. So everything that I had, like I had friends and they wanted to come over. Yes, it was for wanting to party, but I didn't really care at that point. I just wanted friends. I was so starved for friendship.
Right, so you fit in, you were accepted because you would do what they wanted to do and drink and party.
Yeah, and I was allowed to go to the parties. My dad would drop me off and pick me up.
And provide alcohol for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking back, I can see the definite dangers in that. In saying that, like, my dad did the best that he knew how in the situation that he was in.
So you've really seen one end of the spectrum to the other. When you have kids, how will you deal with it?
Yeah, very, very differently to how my father handled it. It was just, going from one extreme to the other, and my brain was not developed fully at 16. Nobody's is. So it was very confusing. And for me, when I have children, I'll definitely be having a very lengthy conversation around the dangers. I can't say that I'm going to rule it out altogether because I think that my child will probably just do what I did and sneak behind, which is really dangerous. But it's also just as dangerous. Like, I didn't really get questioned much about what I was doing and where I was going. If I compare what happened to me to, say, my other friends, I had a friend whose mother would allow us to drink there, but she would buy a 4-pack of a low alcohol only, and there was discussion around what we could and couldn't do, where we could and couldn't go, and why we were only allowed the 4. Whereas for me, it was just like, oh yeah, whatever goes. Mm-hmm. Sure, I'll take you to somewhere an hour away. He would pick me up, which was great for a 16-year-old. But looking back, I don't feel it was probably the most appropriate thing, and it actually led to me having resentment issues later down the track.
sounds like there's a really fine line between giving a child freedom and maintaining some rules.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the adult's job to take charge of that. They have a fully developed brain, and children and teenagers don't. And we need to, as adults, we need to be really, really mindful that the boundaries and the things that we set or don't set, that affects a teenager's life for the rest of their life. And for me, like I was quite academic, and I started to fail school. Partying became more important because it was just allowed, and there was no discussion and boundary set of, okay, well, you know, I'll buy you this 4-pack, but, you know, have you finished all of your homework? Have you studied for exams? I remember bringing a friend around, and I was brought a carton of beer and 2 packets of cigarettes, and my friend and I sat there and studied for our Year 12 exams in the lounge room like that. And then I went to my exam hungover.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and stoned.
No. With your mum, was there general conversations about other things in life? And it was no, so there was little connection?
Yeah, it was her way or the highway. So,
Right.
So if you look at the 3 parenting styles from a psychological point of view, you have the authoritative, the authoritarian, and the permissive. So the authoritarian is my way or the highway, no discussion. It's almost like a bullying a child. Permissive, on the other hand, is the take that my dad had, and it was just like, go for your life, do whatever you want. And he, in a way, he was almost like our lap boy, because it was like, Dad, take us here, Dad, take us there. So we went from one extreme to the other, which is really confusing for a teenager. Yes. I'm lucky that I studied psychology and I can look back and recognize these things. But the optimal way to raise a child is from an authoritative perspective, which is that give and take. Yes, you have boundaries and you have rules, but you have discussion and there's compromise. So an authoritative way would be like how my friend was allowed to have the 4-pack, but we knew the expectations and we knew the rules around that.
So the authoritarian way would be to say no alcohol, and then if we get together and talk with other parents and think we're doing the right thing, to parents who give that 4-pack and have the discussion, and then some of us may think, well, of course that's going to lead on to heavier stuff or more stuff.
Okay, so to clarify, so authoritarian is no, can't have any alcohol, not just discussing it, not telling you why, it's just a flat out, no, do it my way, that's it. Authoritative may still be, the answer might still be no, but there will be a discussion around why. So for me, you know, I haven't had kids, so I don't know exactly what I will or won't do in that situation. If I have a rebel child and I know that they're a strong-willed rebel child, I probably would maybe purchase a small amount and have a discussion around the boundaries and the respect, because I would be concerned about them just doing what I did and running and doing it behind my back, which is more dangerous. But if I have a child that I know is a really good child, then I would stay firm in my no, but have a discussion around why. Does that make sense?
Absolutely,
yeah.
That makes sense. And I've seen it with my own kids. Different personalities require
That's right.
different ways to look at things.
And I think also looking at the reasons behind why teenagers want to drink is massive. For me, I was trying to self-medicate because of, I had that authoritarian mother and that permissive father, which together was still confusing for me, because I was being bossed around and domineered by one, but then the other would make up for it by giving whatever we wanted behind the other person's back, sort of thing.
No middle ground.
No, no one actually treated me like an adult who could have a intellectual conversation about what I was feeling, and that comes from their own backgrounds and their own issues. And another, if I was different, that might not have affected me in such ways, but I was a kind of person who was like, I really needed that and was craving that, and because I wasn't getting it, it caused me to self-medicate because I was so damaged by it.
So do you feel that with the drinking, was it more to go up against your parents or more for acceptance and to be with friends?
Definitely the acceptance part. I was miserable and looking for that connection, that friendship, as well as self-medicating. There was, that one night of revenge, that was totally, I'll show them. But other than that, no, it was nothing to do with them at all. It was all to do with what was going on in my world. And there should have been more family discussion around that. And, I don't harbour any hard feelings because, my brain is fully developed now, and I can look at the way they were raised, and they didn't have that kind of discussion in their family, so therefore they carried that forward.
So for you, when you become a parent, or for the parents out there watching, what would be your key tips on how to build a strong foundation for our kids so that they don't go down a destructive path?
I think the number one key is communication and listen to your child. I still see so many parents that brush off behaviour as attention seeking or they're just being a little shit. I think that's a really narrow-minded approach, and human beings are not that simple. If your child, even if you it is for attention, why are they seeking that attention? What are you not giving them that you should as a parent, or what's going wrong in their life for them to be needing that attention? Really, it is your job as a parent to be watching out for your children, and they will show you hints and tips to what is going on, what's going wrong in their world, if there is, because they will lash out. Their behavior will be bad. They will be doing things like drinking and drugs. People who feel whole inside do not go and seek drinking or alcohol or sexual fulfillment or any of gambling. All of these wealth of problems come from, this is for adults and teenagers, it comes from something is missing inside. They feel empty and they're trying to fill it up, and you can't fill it up with destructive things. You have to fill it up with love and care.
So if we get to the point where we see the self-destructive behaviour and we've already disconnected from our child, it's really challenging to even have a conversation with them. How can we go about just bringing back that connection?
People really need to take a long, hard, deep look at themselves and how they're contributing. Is it because you weren't shown much love and affection when you were younger, so therefore you find physical and strong bonds and emotional ties confronting and hard? And your child's picking up on those unconscious signs that you may not have any idea that you're actually projecting that. Or it could be the opposite. You could be smothering them to the point where you're pushing them away. You could be forcing your opinion onto them and they feel like they're not being heard. And that's where, the aid of counselling or life coaching or any number of one of those therapeutic avenues.
So it's about us, ourselves.
Self-awareness.
Sometimes we can't just say, take my child, fix my child. Something wrong going on there. It's a whole unit.
It's a whole diverse group of factors, and sometimes you have to bring in that third party to really you know, get to it, and because that third party's job is to go, oh, okay, hang on, stop now. I see a pattern developing, and you know, this person has just shut down this person. Do you recognize that what you just said then and the way that you said it, this person has just shut down because I could just see it then. You know, bringing in that mediation to show you a different point of view that you may not realize. Because, you know, most humans aren't innately bad. We're doing the best that we know how to with the knowledge that we have.
I'd been a parent for a number of years before I realised that the best teachers in my life are my kids. But I had to decide to look at that, and they're actually big mirrors for me, and I got that I need to look at my behaviours and how I'm projecting that onto them.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head there, because your children like look to you for guidance. And yeah, there's a number of factors, you know, they go to school and they interact with people, but you're their number one teacher. And if they don't get something, it's probably because you haven't taught them that. I know that's harsh, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah,
and we have to take responsibility for that.
Yeah, it's hard to wear.
It is. Nothing about being a human is easy.
Yeah. Considering you've seen both ends of the spectrum, what do you think we can do to help our kids head down a healthy path?
Keeping open communication and discussion is super, super important. Making sure that you're not shutting your child out without realising it by jumping on something that they say and you know, accusing them of being wrong, because they're then going to shut down. And you know, you really need to keep those communication channels open and as honest as possible, and treat your child, your teenager, you know, they're a young adult. Don't treat them like they're a child, because then they will resent you. Treat them as though they're an equal, their opinions matter, and you want to hear from them, and you can learn just as much from them as they can learn from you. I think that is really, really important.
Thanks so much for joining me today, Jamie. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.